Alright, this time in the Quick Speed Shop, I got a quick and easy video for you. I'm going to show you how I use a piece of cardboard to make a sheet metal patch panel. I'm fixing a small rust hole. It's a very basic skill, but it's something that everybody needs to know when they're working on old cars. So follow along. I'm going to show you how I did it. Anybody can do it. So let's get into the video. I'm starting right now. I'm a professional. Don't try this at home. Alright, welcome back to the Quick Speed Shop. If you've been here before, you know what project I'm working on. It's my 1988 Ford Econoline boogie van. I'm backdating the thing to the 70s by putting in some round headlights. But today I want to do a simple video. I'm going to show you how I make templates for patch panels. I've got a rusted out section here that I want to make a patch panel in. It's going to be a real simple video. If you haven't seen how to make patch panels, this is how I do it. It's real simple. We're going to make a real small flat piece of sheet metal going here. I'm going to show you what I use. I use this thin cardboard. It's called like chipboard. It's about that thick. If you can see, it's sturdy. You can get it like at craft stores, or it comes in shipping containers sometimes. But it's real nice for making patterns. We're going to make a pattern here for a piece of sheet metal. I'm going to make the pattern and get it ready to weld in. I got a pair of scissors and a pencil. That's pretty much all we need. So what I want to do is I got this oddball shape, and it's going to follow along here. It's going to curve down and pick up the edge of this, and it's going to weld in all the way around here, and it's going to spot weld on here. And then this brace is missing the end, which is rusted out. It's actually going to get a piece of brace that welds in over the top of it. But I need to put this lower section in first. So what I do is I take this, and this applies to any patch panel you're going to make, you know, any place on the car. I'm just going to use this as an example because it's easy, and I'll give you the basic understanding of how it applies. But it could apply, you know, if I wanted to patch this hole or fill this in or make any type of patch panel. It's the same idea. All right, so the first step I'm going to do is get this. I've cut the cardboard into a rough shape. It's bigger than my hole that I want to make. I'm going to hold it up, make sure it covers everywhere I've got to go, which is going to be, actually it might fit better this way. There we go. Now it's covering everywhere I got to go. I'm just going to take my pencil, I'm going to go on the inside, I'm going to trace around on the cardboard some rough dimensions. Sometimes you can't do this on a panel if it's got a piece welded to the back of it. This one I can, and we'll just use this for an example. So I'm going to go ahead and take my pencil, just trace up the inside of the piece I want it to butt up to. Here, just kind of hold it with my hand. Get your hand stuck in the van and hold that there. Come down around on the bottom. You just want to hold this so it doesn't move. Sometimes you can use tape or a magnet to hold it. Luckily this one's small, I can hold it with my hand. Just hold it here. I'm going to trace it up around where it's got to be. Like that. So now you can see I've got the rough outline of my piece here. This upper line was a little hard to hold it in there, moved around. So I'm just simply going to take my scissors and let's trim it out. The bottom I got pretty good. I'm going to leave it just a little bit long. Let's go ahead and trim it out just a little bit long here. Got a pretty good edge here. I can trim that pretty close. This upper edge, I'm going to leave it long because it looks like it had trouble following along there. Let's see how that does. That came out pretty nice. That's pretty much right on the money. Like that, you can see this shape, this, like I said, this outer piece here is missing a corner. I've got to cut it out of a parts vehicle and it actually welds on over 3/4 of this, so you're only going to see this much of it when it gets done. But that's really, really close for my pattern. I'm going to trim just a little bit off this edge, which I didn't trace before. Go ahead and we'll trim just a little bit of that off. That should drop right in here where it's got to be. So this is going to get a butt weld along the top. It's going to get a couple of spot welds in here, which will get ground smooth. And then it's going to get welded, a butt weld along here. There's actually a turn signal hole that gets cut in this panel here, and this panel will make the edge of that. So we've got our pattern. I'm going to get a piece of 18 gauge sheet metal, and the 18 gauge will be the piece of metal that we're going to use here to replace this. Right out here on the table, I've got my piece of 18 gauge. Now I like to take the pattern and try to line it up with some edges to see if I can get an edge that's close. And this looks really close here. I can take my pencil or a marker or whatever. I'm just use the pencil here. The pencil is a little bit harder to see. But I'm just going to trace the outline of this panel onto here. That's going to be really hard to see. Actually, I've got a marker right here. I've traced my panel on there. You can see it's a little hard to see. This marker is a little dried out. But I've got the panel transferred on my 18 gauge. We're going to cut it out. It's got a little bit of surface rust. We'll sand it down before we make the panel on there. And let's go over to the Beverly shear. We'll cut this out. I'll show you how that works. Now, if you want to get into sheet metal work, I suggest you get one of these Beverly shears. These things are amazing for cutting sheet metal. They can cut around circles, and they're a throatless shear that's very nice. So this has got a really long handle on it. It'll cut. This one will cut up to, I think, 14 gauge, so it'll easily slice through as 18. I'm just going to cut right on my line since the pattern was pretty close. This should be good here. I'm just going to slowly work through it. You can see I can easily cut through this panel. I'm just going to saw it right off here. I cut through that like nothing, but if you don't have one of these, you can use tin snips. Cut this out by hand. You could use like a little jigsaw. You could use a bandsaw, whatever you want to cut out your sheet metal on. But I love this tool. It works great. So we'll go like this. We'll cut right along our pattern edge. And I get into these curved pieces. I can start to roll the sheet metal along by pulling it with my hand and slowly pulling the jaws down. This is kind of a tight one. Get in there. It's going. The sheet metal is bound up under here. Let me cut this extra piece off. So we can continue around our path here. Almost got it, almost there. You see I cut the panel out, it's pretty close. I'm just gonna use a hand file. I'm just gonna take the grinder, I'm gonna clean this edge up just a little bit. But first I'm gonna take it over and I'm gonna use a hammer, and you see it's got a little bit of distortion going through the dies. I'm just gonna hammer it out flat real fast. I just used a hammer and I hammered that out flat. So let's come over here on the van, see how it looks. That fits really well. The secret, that's flat, okay. Oh, I got a little high spot on my bottom edge here. I got to hammer this smooth down here where it spot welds on. But this is the secret to make a nice patch panel, is to make a nice pattern. You can see that piece is going to lay right in there really nice. I've got just a little bit of gap, like a 1/16 or so around for my welding. That'll help the butt weld. It'll help it penetrate very nicely. I'm not going to do the welding in this video because I've got to take this panel off. I got to use my sandblaster. I got some rust here. I got to sandblast some rust around the edges. But we essentially made this panel here. It fits very nicely. It's going to weld in there just fine. So it's pretty much that easy for simple panels. It's the same idea if you're patching a floorboard. Say this is a rust hole you cut out in your floorboard. You do the same thing. You would make your panel, and you would cut your hole and line it up if you're going to do a butt weld. If you're going to do an overlap weld, you know, a panel that was on top one of another, you would have it be a little bit bigger, than you would weld up on the edge here. If you're doing a spot weld, you would drill some holes, and then your panel would go behind, you clamp it together, and you would use the welder, and you would weld in the weld like up here. Well, this was spot welded on here. I've got to clean this up, and I can use a clamp and clamp this and weld this back together. I drilled this off another panel off another vehicle. So I just want to make a quick and easy video today, just something simple that sometimes people take for granted and it's not covered, but it's really simple to make basic patch panels by using a piece of cardboard or heavy cardstock for a template. Trace it out, use your tool of choice to cut out your piece of sheet metal, and then fit it up in there and make a nice patch panel that can be welded in and repair an area. This is a basic vehicle repair, rust repair 101, but if you're just getting started in the hobby, it's a skill that comes in very handy, and it can be used on to fill any type of hole anywhere on the vehicle. You know, I mean, obviously this is very simple. You can make a lot more complicated templates to making patches. If you get into compound curves and stuff, that's a little more involved. But right now, this is just a simple starter video, just to show you how I do it for simple repairs. You saw it took just a few minutes there to make the cardboard template, make my piece of sheet metal, and it's a skill that lasts a long time, that you can use throughout your life, fixing old vehicles up, making new metal, and you'll look like an expert in no time. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe. I put out videos Wednesdays and Saturdays, building old vans, hot rods, new fabrication, whatever else I got going on here at the Quick Speed Shop. I appreciate everybody watching. Tell your friends to subscribe, and I'll see you again at the next video.